Hello everyone, welcome back again to Spiritual Growth Tarot. Although today this will be astrology, and I have Clarence Thomas's natal birth map, his natal chart. I have his solar return for this year and next year, and I also have his progressions and solar arcs, transits, progressions, and solar arcs. I have the whole 9 yards, and I'm going to try and do this as quickly as I can so that it's not, like an hour and a half reading or whatever, because we're probably all just wanting to know the same thing. Like, how's it going to go for him in the future? Will he step down? Will he be impeached? Health issues, all of that. So I thought I'd dive into it and see what I can get. And if you haven't already seen it, I've done 2 readings on him so far with the tarot. And the last one was, what did I do? Did I just do Kipper? Oh, I can't even remember. Oh my God, that's scary. Anyway, that's in there. There's another reading in there if you don't want to look at astrology. Of course, if you don't want to look at astrology, you probably wouldn't have clicked on this video. So let me just drop the camera down and show you these charts. Hold on. Okay, so first we have his natal chart here, and it is June 23rd, birth time, date, June 23rd, 1948, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Pinpoint, Georgia. In case you're an astrologer and you want to run it yourself. That's the data that was I found on Astro.com that had a AA Rodin, Lois Rodin rating, which means it's very trustworthy. Well, I do find it odd that somebody would be born right at 9 o'clock, but the ascendant changes 1 degree every 4 minutes. So let's say it was 90 whatever or 8 something. Sometimes, especially back in those days, they didn't go with baby's first breath. They sometimes went with like when the cord was cut or whatever, or when they got around to clocking it. It's different now. Laws are different now since 1968 in the United States. But, it's close enough. It could be that there's a degree or 2 or 3 difference here. But it's not like it came out with like a 0 degree or a 29 degree. To where there'd be that enough discrepancy to like change the ascendant here. So that being said, because his ascendant is Capricorn, his chart ruler is Saturn. But with the moon here close to the the limitation here is usually 3 to 5 degrees. That would include it, wouldn't it? 3 to 5 degrees to the ascendant. So this can be a co-ruler as well. So that would be Uranus, because Uranus rules Aquarius. But back in the day before Uranus was discovered, Saturn ruled Aquarius. So I'm going to go with both. And I'm going to do that because Saturn's up here. So once you figure out the chart ruler, you want to go to where that planet is to get more information. And Saturn's here in the 7th, conjunct Pluto. And we also have Uranus down here in the 5th, which isn't that far from his Cancer sun. But the main things, without going into tons of detail, because this guy has not paid me to do his reading. And I'm not going to look for his divine rays. I'm not going to do any of the things that I would do for one of you in a personal, reading. And I'm just going to look at the blatant... we're looking at lower levels of consciousness here. I have to say it. So with that being said, the thing that sticks out to me, besides he does have, this Cancer stellium here, and usually when I start off a chart, I go with the sun. But this Pluto and Saturn square the nodes is really a sore thumb sticking out to me here, and especially Pluto, because it's a tight orb. You can see 13 here to 13 degrees, Pluto and Leo, to this south node here, to 12 degrees here, and to the north node here. So when any planet is square the nodes, it indicates something that a person was not able to work through, didn't have the opportunities to finish, or just blatantly didn't, refuse to do the work to try and transform the soul, because Pluto is all about transforming the soul. And with Saturn there, we're talking about lessons and mastery. And it also, Saturn rules a government, so he could have been in a governmental type of a position, but I don't know that it was a very high one based on his tarot reading, because I do remember the Page of Swords was one of the main cards for him as far as karma goes. That might have been, to tell the truth, right? And maybe his biggest challenge was to tell the truth. But with Pluto here, we're talking power, we're talking unconsciousness, we're talking the undercurrents, we're talking about things that we bury because we don't want to be exposed. We're talking about the need to be humble. We're talking about eliminating things that are not for our best, for our highest good in order to evolve. But it does, eventually we're going to go through it, whether we like it or not. Pluto's about things that we really can't negotiate. It's like your soul is like, no, you have to heal this. You have to go in this direction. And you can't collect $200 and move ahead, whatever type of thing. You can't skip the get out of jail free. You don't get the get out of jail free card. You can't skip any steps to evolve. There are no skip steps, and there's no cheating life. It just doesn't work that way. They eventually fall at some point. So I think in his last lifetimes, he hasn't been able to move forward. And that's especially true because we have Jupiter here that's retrograde in Sag, and Jupiter and Sag both rule politics and the courts of law. So it's possible that he was some type of a judge in a prior lifetime, and he didn't do well, and he has lessons this lifetime to deal with. But anyway, the way you heal, when you have any planet squaring the nodes, people that watch my weekly astrology have heard me talk about this recently, every week, because we're going through Saturn square the nodes. Right now, we're all going through that. We have been for weeks, and that will be lasting for quite some time. So anyway, with Pluto for him at the, because we have a T-square going on here, and Pluto's at the apex. Saturn's there influencing it too, but it's definitely more so Pluto. It's a tight orb, only 1 degree. And the deal here is you go to the planet that's in the T-square up at the apex, and then you go to the left of that planet to see which node is the resolution node, because the south node has to do with the past. And the south node is like the insertion point for the wisdom, the experience, everything that we've. It's kind of like which way you've come from, where you hail from. It can be a soul group of people that incarnate during the same time because they have things to work out. But he's coming from a Scorpio perspective, and he's needing to get into his Taurus perspective, and I'll talk more about that in a little while. But you probably all know that the nodes are in Taurus and Scorpio, and it exactly here. They're at 23, 22 right now, but they go backwards. So he's going to have his nodal return before too long as well. I don't know if I picked out the date on that, but I have several charts down here to show you underneath. So basically, back to this Pluto square the nodes, he needs to get into his Taurus north node in order to evolve. So, and Venus rules the north node, or Venus rules Taurus and Libra, but Venus is ruling his north node. So he's needing to get in touch with relationship dynamics and how to get into a better sense of values that are important, instead of appearance values. He's needing to change his attitudes towards women and the feminine, and transform that, basically, right? The more he goes backwards towards, now it's always about balance, of course, the balancing of the polarities, but the more he goes backwards into his south node, which is controlling, which is sexual, I don't know, whatever you would call it. I kind of don't want to say deviant because I hate using a word like that, when it comes to anybody's sexuality. But, the guy, just remember what he did to Anita Hill. And then, so here you go. We have him in his powerful position, trying to get a government position, powerful, judge. And he has this past history of sexual harassment, and until he changes his values around women, and he was married to Jenny Thomas, no less, when all of this happened. It's just ridiculous. I didn't know that in my very first reading with him. I didn't know anything about her. But so she was with him, and she stayed with him, and whatever. What I see here, just to nail down, without going into it taking forever, because I really want to show you more about his transits rather than his natal chart, but I have to. This is the baseline, right? But what I see here, with this dynamic here, we've got power struggles, power dynamics, abusive power. Pluto can be very abusive and controlling, especially in Leo. And, it's like my will or my, hit the highway, kind of, what is it? My way or hit the highway, whatever. And not only that, with this squaring the nodes, he has Chiron in Scorpio. So there's I think he has suffered sexual trauma and sexual wounding, or he's been controlled by very powerful people because it's in the 10th house. And I have a feeling that what he did to Anita Hill was something that was done to him in his past life, because, we still have this square. Saturn is definitely in a tight orb to squaring Chiron. And Saturn is karma. Saturn is the past. Saturn is something that you're trying to master. He needs to open his heart in order to unlock this whole dynamic here. I hope you guys were curious about this. We have, it's not a finger of fate, but we have 3 inconjuncts just to the moon. So we have his Sun, Mercury, and Venus. This whole stellium here, and Mercury's retrograde and Venus is retrograde. That's a lot. Chiron is retrograde. The nodes are retrograde, but I kind of tend to not pay a lot of attention to that because they're retrograde a lot and they move backwards. So anyway, what we have here is this whole aspect here is a heart that's an emotional body that is disconnected from the heart, disconnected from the true essence of the feminine, and this need to get out of an apathetic state, this need to stop, cutting off, right? It pigeonholing, literally like pigeonholing the feminine, pigeonholing families and all that is sacred. being inhumane towards women, towards family, being in, now I'm going to talk about that's the dark side of Aquarius. The dark side of Cancer is this patriotic bullshit, like we're better than, USA is the best kind of crap. And this my will or my way up here with Leo, and then this Cancer, it's just, and especially to have this in the 6th house, because the 6th house is work and service. So you can bet he objectified like crazy Anita Hill and any other woman that's come into touch with him. And this is a pattern that he incarnated with. This pattern here. Sexual issues, a disregard for the feminine, a cutting off of the heart. And Uranus here in Gemini, as it progressed, I'm sure it crossed over. We'll look at that. Crossed over his sun. All of these. Well, it doesn't. Actually, I have to take that back. It's only the personal planets that progress. We don't progress Uranus, but when we get to the solar arcs, when we see that chart that's all together with the progressions, we'll see a change here. But anyway, I feel like his Uranus is shocks to the mind, shocks to being able to communicate in a way that he wants to from his will. And I feel like it's all this subterfuge, this dissipation of energy, of the pleasure of being a sexual human being. And he had soul shocks, something that happened when he was little, I think. I don't really care, but because it's no excuse. It's never an excuse. But I think something happened to him when he was younger, and it's created this tension field and this deeper wounding, to his solar essence, to the way he thinks, and to the way he relates to people. And then with this semi-square here to the north node, and semi-square here up to Saturn, because it has to be Saturn and Pluto actually, from the Sun, Uranus, this need for him to wake up, the action that needed to be taken to reduce this friction here would be for him to have woken up at some point in his lifetime to his own sexual trauma and wounding, people who have betrayed him, and how he has betrayed women and continues to. I think he's probably abusive to Jenny, and I don't care because I'm pretty sure she's abusive to him too. I can't even imagine what they're like together. And then this opposition here from Uranus to Jupiter tells me that he goes in. I think he disassociates into like his being. He just disassociates from the essence of who he really is, and is just stuck in his trauma and his shock and his wounding, and then just bings back and forth in this like trying to move forward. Go for the money. Just go for the money is what I heard, when I was looking at it when I first opened, printed it out and was, opening up the reading. And then this whole dynamic here is emotional dependency. He's an emotionally dependent man on his wife, and she's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, She's and this is and I have a feeling like she's had him by the short hairs of their entire marriage, and he's just stuck in that dynamic. It's like no wonder he got sick and is probably trying to check out, And then if this opposition between Uranus and Jupiter isn't enough to blow this up, we also have Jupiter square Mars natally. So this shows this place where his deeper drive, his deeper sexuality gets all fractured and fragmented, and he doesn't really know where he is half the time, and he's just sloppily out there putting himself out to anybody any friend group, he's got this unconscious like goal here to just go for it and get what he wants. And so he's one of these kind of creepy people who might not say a thing. Mercury retrograde here and Venus retrograde might not say a damn thing, but then thinking all these things underneath. And this kind of creepy guy that hanging out with women, he's like, in his mind, he's in their sexuality. That's the main feeling I get with this guy. It's just really creepy. Now, with the Jupiter trine Saturn and Pluto, he's able to use his power, his position of power in relationship. He has karma, relationship karma up the wazoo with these two planets together here in the 7th. And just because it's a nice, easy trine over to Jupiter, that doesn't mean it works well. It's a contact point. It just means that he goes into excessive compulsions with Sag to go for what he wants. Remember, Jupiter's retrograde too. So there's lessons to be learned there as well that he didn't finish, in a prior lifetime. And so I think by the time that he had been abusing, harassing Anita Hill, I'm sure that the pattern was in place where he had been doing it before, And probably Ginny Thomas didn't care because she just wanted to be attached to, she might have been kind of like one of those, like, what do you call them, kingmakers or something. She might have pushed him. And I'm sure he wanted to be married to a white woman and he wanted to use her. I'm sure that they have used each other like crazy to just get what they want. But again, problems with what really matters to this guy. And then, Venus over here, all connected here to this emotional dependency and cut off from the heart. What a combo, huh? Okay, so now I'm going to show you his transits as of, I went forward to April 3rd purposely because that's the day that Uranus and the moon are conjunct. And Uranus is already 1 degree past his north node. When I first printed out his chart and I saw that, I was like, whoa, because I knew Uranus was at 12 degrees. Well, by this day, it's at 13. Uranus conjunct the north node is changes on your path that you're going to have to experience, whether you like it or not. Uranus can be very, very disruptive. It can be, like I said before, to me, it's the planet of soul shocks. And of course, in his chart, his soul shocks were to his creative self-expression, being that is in the 5th house. Now, and of course, that would explain why there's this subterfuge where he puts his sexuality out there in a creepy way, because, hasn't really created what he wanted to do. He might not have ever really wanted to be a judge. There's that possibility. So, moving forward, the important thing with these transits is to know that Pluto's here on his ascendant, has crossed over his ascendant. He's been having trouble for quite some time. And now that Pluto's made it over his ascendant, I mean, just to have Pluto on your ascendant is something that is just huge. I mean, you have to remember, look where Pluto started, 7th, and it's only made it to here. Pluto takes 243 years to 248 years to get around the zodiac. So they are, every house that transits, Pluto transits through our charts, they are once in a lifetime transits. Most people are never going to have a Pluto opposition. Now, it could happen because of an elliptical orbit, but I think it's rare. And we're never going to have, we have Pluto squaring and conjuncting. He's had Pluto cross over his Saturn at a young age, probably when he had this sexual trauma. And then he had, but of course, remember, that was part of his life path. And he had Pluto cross over his Mars. Maybe that was when the Anita Hill thing was happening. I'd have to look, but I didn't. Pluto, Neptune had a chance to, to get out of delusion and get into some issues with relationships that needed to be healed. He didn't do it. He had Pluto cross over his south node. That didn't work. Maybe this was the Anita Hill. I'd have to look it all up, and I don't want to. Can you tell I'm disgusted with this guy? Pluto crossover is Chiron, so he didn't heal any past life issues. He didn't heal his deepest wounding, and then he's made it all the way through, and he even went through Pluto going through the 12th house that should have just cleared out all types of anything. He could have been one of these people that just healed immensely, and by the time it makes it to the 12th house, I have friends who've have Pluto in the 12th house, and they are absolutely psychic, unbelievably powerful psychics. Not him, but he even blew that transit, and then Pluto on the ascendant, he still didn't, about the most powerful thing he's done in the past is, he finally spoke up on the bench. He finally did something. And what did he do? He dissented around not letting the National Archives get the... Well, it didn't happen. It didn't work because it was 8-1. He lost. But he was the only one that said, yeah, it's okay to keep the records from the National Archives out, or, to release those from the National Archives about Trump. It's like... Okay, dude. Anyway, so Pluto is now here, and it's conjunct his moon. I don't know. Will he transform his emotional body? I doubt it. I doubt it because he hasn't done any of the work to transform everything here. So I think that we're seeing a soul who is, on the path to, it's like, the end. Death happens when self-destruction has been happening for so long that now there needs to be the destruction of the destruction. And, then he gets to come back in and try again, at another time in history. So I can see that with Mars, Saturn, and Venus here in the first, he might have had some more energy coming into his physical body to try and help him heal. But Pluto here on the ascendant, it's just, as far as transits go, and we have to remember, Venus rules his north node, and transiting Venus is over here in Aquarius. It's still just not compatible. There's still tension there. As far as health goes, Uranus on the North Node is something that can take a person out, or wake you up. Right? I've had Uranus over my North Node. I definitely woke up. And yeah, so to have the Moon and Uranus as well. The Moon in a chart, in a reading like this, in the context of the way I'm reading at this point, the Moon would rule the public. So the public is shocked as to what he's done, and they're tired of it. And Uranus is here just still trying to get him on his path. Like maybe if he would make a change, maybe if he could open his heart, maybe if he could stop objectifying women, maybe if he could speak up. I doubt it, but maybe if he could speak up and say the truth as to what happened on January 6th and what he knows about what his wife has done and what he has done, and maybe what monies they have, donated together in order to support the insurrection. Maybe this could be a completely new place to regardless whether a soul decides to leave or whether the higher self is deciding to take the soul out of a destructive situation of self-sabotage. or not, it doesn't matter. Enlightenment is still needing to happen. So I would think if he leaves, maybe he would incarnate again with, like, let's say Uranus at the south node or something. Who knows? I mean, that's like a completely, that's a thing I shouldn't even talk about, because it's all left up to, like, can you imagine sitting around a table with your guides, your guardian angels, with the divine, like maybe the beings that are in charge of the Akashic records, and they're like, dude, okay, well, here's what you accomplished this lifetime, and here's what you didn't. So here's what needs to happen. And maybe there's a lot of resistance, and he says, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go through that, but they have to. And then a time is set up for those perfect transits to incarnate again, right? Or perfect timing to incarnate again to set up the life experience. It's all set up beforehand. It's actually a really beautiful thing. So anyway, without spending a whole lot of time here, let me just tune in to make sure I don't miss anything. We can see Uranus here on the North Node is also moving, so it's moving, this way. The North Node's moving this way because the nodes go backwards. But as the North Node here travels this way, it's going to be in exact opposition. I'm sorry, as Uranus travels this way towards the North Node, it's going to be, in exact opposition to Chiron. Uranus, opposite Chiron. It could create a breakthrough of healing, but then again, it could just be something very shocking for him. So I think I'll go ahead and look at the next layer of transits, because these other personal planets here, I'm looking to see if I miss anything, but they'll still be here in this one anyway, so I'm going to keep going. Hold on, I need to leave his natal out in case I need to look at it. Okay, so this is moving forward in time. Oh, I'm sorry, that's his birth time. August 1st. This year, August 1st, coming up at 7:34 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We will all have the transit. We will all see Mars, Uranus conjunct at the North Node. Now, July 31st, it's building up, right? It's like it's right here on the other side, but by the 1st, it's crossed over. Mars and Uranus have crossed over, but only by minutes. Now, just like I was saying before, notice how Uranus is opposing Chiron up here, Taurus, Scorpio here, and Mars is, so Uranus is here, Mars is there as well. So now Mars brings in energy. It pushes energy through. With it being in Taurus, and Uranus, Taurus, all of that, remember it's ruled by Venus, so we're talking about relationships. And relationships where you're trying to figure out if you're safe or not. And in the 4th house, for him to have Uranus having crossed over, remember here, look at this, see the transition here? Oh, I forgot to talk about that. Uranus on the IC. So the IC down here is a past life point, and it's directly on that IC. And the moon as well. So the public witnessing something shocking, I don't know if it's him leaving, or I don't know that he would step down or recuse himself. I think he's probably pretty stubborn, but because Cancer and Taurus can be kind of tenacious and stubborn. But notice how Uranus now is fully in the 4th house. Like it started moving forward pretty quickly. And the 4th house is all about our roots. It's our family. It has everything to do with our psychic sensitivity. It has to do with our real needs and whether they were met or unmet. And it's like the house of home. It's the house of our domestic affairs, what we own, tangible assets that we own. So, you know, basic, you know, property, things like that, real estate property. It represents relationships with women in the fourth house. So Uranus is shaking up all of that. Uranus is going to blow something up, disrupt something, split something off. I doubt he's going to get a divorce, but because they're both just, you know, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs together, I just feel like this is probably because of that moon that was conjunct down here in the IC. I have a feeling this is like public humiliation. I really feel like it's public humiliation. And I say that especially because Chiron is up here. This is opposing Chiron directly. I know it only looks like an opposition here from Chiron to Mars, but the way these programs are, that, you know, they have to, there has to be space left to put the next planet in. And so just know that all three of these points, so this point in space where we're all going towards more safety, but maybe not for him, Mars and Uranus as well, is all here opposing his Chiron, which is his deepest wounding, his deepest painful inner conflict. And the South Node is there, and so the past, all of this, it's all the past anyway, but it's, man, look at that. Look at that. And like I said, he's headed towards, headed towards the nodal return, because remember the nodes go backwards, so when it gets to 12 degrees, he's going to have a nodal return, which only happens every about 19 years. And so it's an opportunity to, especially for him, because his North Node is in, see, his whole natal chart is set up for him to come back home to who he is, to get in touch with his feelings, to get in touch with his body, and to not be disembodied, not be, you know, all over out there and into other people's sexuality. It's about him coming home to himself. Well, I don't think he's done well with that at all. And so this is a point here where he can come home to himself. Well, when he comes home to himself, is he going to be checking out? Is that how that works? I wonder, I wonder. But yeah, so, and I don't really care about looking at Venus and Mercury and the Sun transiting through these houses and the Moon, because I don't care how he feels. But then again, this could be the public dissecting in Virgo, what am I saying? Vigo. The Virgo moon could be dissecting what is out there, what's in the public sphere. There could be something. And in the eighth house can be the house of secrets. It's sex, death, taxes, death, rebirth. I said death twice, but rebirth, death and rebirth. It's also the house of transformation, it's an opportunity there, but I think it's going to come in from the public, dissecting what he's done in the past. I think something's on public display and secrets are out. And it affects him and his home life immensely. And because he's in so much emotional dependency with his wife, we're talking dependency and codependency dynamics that go both way. Even though, I guess she's an attorney and she's probably had her own money, I still feel they're tied to the hip, and I think it's a very sick relationship. So, but as far as other transits, here's what I'm more drawn to is this Saturn and Neptune, Jupiter as well. Transiting Chiron is something to look at. So, but with Pluto, Neptune here, Pluto we've talked about. Neptune here is in Pisces, going through the second house, I think it would be dissolving. I think it would have the effect of dissolving what used to matter to him in the past. Remember, it was like just go for the money. Well, now I feel like he's at that point because probably he had a hard time in the hospital. He was in the hospital for a week for some type of undisclosed infection, which they said wasn't COVID. So what was it, right? I'm thinking it had to do with like bodily fluids and the inability for his lungs to work well. I feel like it has something to do with that. Like a backup of fluids and the lungs not working well, based on his chart here. And maybe, well, yeah, it's more Virgo that rules the kidneys, so I kind of don't think it was that, right? Then again, he does have Mars in Virgo. Yeah. I mean, this is, another just looking at his natal chart here, this diluted sexuality that was just fragmented sexual, yeah. And our sexuality really is tied to our life force, so he's like this fragmented life force as well. And then this delusion around what real relationships are. To him, it's all about power and control. So, yeah. But anyway, Neptune transiting through the second house. See how it's made it through. It takes about, I think it was like 14 years or so to get through one sign. So it's taken all this time to get to, again, these are once in a lifetime transits. So... yeah, because it takes about 150 years to get around the chart. But anyway, so Neptune in this second house here, I think it's dissolving his finances, his safety, his values, whether he meant to or not. It could even be a little bit of drug addiction of some type, being that... yeah, that's very possible. And then Jupiter in his second, I think, just brings in him wanting to expand, and he's thinking about his finances and he's worried about it, but it's also can be just him kind of like blowing up his unhealthy ego. And whatever he believes in, I mean, it's been money. It's just been money. That's dissolving. He might be, who knows what he went through in the hospital, and he might be having this disillusion of the old ways and starting to think about, what's it like when you die? And, I can't take my money with me, right? Yeah. And then Chiron in the third, going through the third house, this should, trouble with his thinking processes. So, let's see. If I do look at Mercury, there could be leading up to this point here in August, because Mercury moves pretty quickly. And, yeah, because if I look at this timing here, notice where Mercury's here in Aries, and look how far it went, right? All the way through here. So this could be, actually, Mercury the messenger, going through all of these houses can bring out things that you've done in the past, and then issues with your service and your work, and then issues with relationship. And by the time we get through to August, it's still about what relationships, and could be governmental, people in the government that he's been loyal to, with Leo there. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Again, tell him disgusted. Okay, so this is his solar return for this year that is almost done. Almost done. And I'm only going over it just to show you the beauty of astrology. So, starting out this year, with the sun up here in the 9th house and close to the midheaven, and the moon ruling the midheaven up here. Remember the moon, because the moon rules Cancer, and the moon rules the public, and it's down here in the 3rd house in Sag, where his how he's thinking and what he does in the public sphere, that's being talked about before the end of this, till his next birthday, which is coming up real soon. But he's finishing up this year because the solar return is a chart for the energies of the entire year and entire, birth year to the next one. So with the sun up here on the midheaven and then the moon ruling the midheaven of this solar return chart, the public would be seeing what he's done, what he's made of, who he is on full display. So we're seeing things from the past, and we're questioning which way is he going to go? Can this guy make decisions in the highest court of law in the USA about the January 6th committee or the January 6th about the insurrection? Should it go to the Supreme Court? Right? It might not, but if it did, wouldn't he have to recuse himself? And that's the question that's up here. You can see the beauty of astrology right here. And then again, with Uranus in the 8th, it's like shocking secrets are revealed. Uranus in the 8th or the 2nd can be a reversal of fortune, but the 8th house is about other people's resources. And so he's going to have shocks, and people are not backing him. People are questioning, what are you going to do, dude? Right? And then meanwhile, Neptune here in the 6th is kind of dissolving his service. And he's trying to escape. I mean, at least when he made that decision around the National Archives records, at least he finally made a decision and said something. He wrote up a dissent, but it's like, jeez. Because the guy has not done anything. He just sits there on the bench and collects his salary. And so Neptune squaring his moon in the 3rd house and with the south node. Remember when the south node was in Sag. So here we go with Sag being courts of law, right? And judges, it rules politics, and squaring Neptune. Neptune square the moon is like very, very confusing. Yeah, I think he was probably very confused. Neptune in the 6th house would also indicate a year of much more health sensitivities, being sensitive to things that you weren't before, and you have to be careful with your health. And, obviously he landed in the hospital for a week, which, is, I don't have any judgments around that. But so Pluto here in the 4th. So 4th house of home, the foundation of your body, the strength of your body. In Capricorn, he could even be having problems with his bones and teeth and skeletal system. Might not be so healthy. But anyway, with this sesquisquare here up to the North Node, again, and then Gemini rules the lungs. So it's like we could kind of see that he might land in a place. Well, on one level, this is him speaking out about, the dissent, that vote that he did for, on behalf of Trump. But yeah, he's probably trying to cover up something shocking that could have come out about his wife, because of course he knew, about her supporting the insurrection. He knew her phone was blowing up while she was texting everybody with 29 texts to Mark Meadows alone. Imagine who else she was messing with. So, but anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on this. Let's look at, put Saturn in the 5th here. That would be limitations around what he wants to create and pleasure in his life. So I don't think it was a good year for him at all. Now let's look at his next birthday, if he lives that long. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. So, June 23rd, 2022, the sun returns to 2 degrees, 27 minutes of which he was born at 7:49 p.m. The sun's in the 7th house of relationship, of course, right? Virgo's up here in the midheaven. That means Mercury rules the midheaven. Jupiter's ruling his ascendant. Mercury's ruling his descendant. So what does that mean? Oh, Pisces is down here in the IC with Neptune is conjunct the IC. Wow. Okay. Virgo's about the kidneys. Pisces would be about the whole autonomic system of your, where you don't have any control over, the things you don't have any control over in your body. It can be addiction here with Neptune and Pisces, either one. It can be being blamed for something. It's possible. Feeling victimized, feelings of victimization could be coming up. His brain not working correctly, cloudy thinking, foggy thinking, because maybe he's using drugs to get through the days. With this in conjunct here from Mars to the South Node, he's having to adjust how he can or cannot move forward with Mars and Aries, how he cannot move forward independently without going back to the past. He's going to have to constantly adjust all year long for what he's done in the past. And he's not going to be able to move forward because he's taken that wounding with him and his whole family. This is not good. Now, if I saw these transits for someone else, I would say it's going to be a great year for doing your deep inner work to free yourself to independently move forward in life. But this guy, again, remember Pluto going through all those houses in his ascendant, and now it's on his moon. He's going to be dealing with it now, whether he likes it or not. But I think it's at the end of life type of thing. If he does, if he is okay with his health and comes through it, it's not going to be easy. But again, remember the same transits I showed you are showing up here in the solar return, with Uranus conjunct the North Node. His path in life is it's changing. This is changing the way he can create and changing his willpower. And then with the moon in the 5th for the year, because the moon, again, and I'm going to read it as the public, I think the public is wanting something different. Yeah, because socially, there's something changing here that's going to be really disruptive. Wow. Yeah. And his past is going to be seen in the group, I think a lot's going to be coming out and things are going to be revealed about his past. All over the internet, people are talking about it. Pluto in the second, he's needing to, again, there's that change in his values, right? With Neptune in the other, in the year before, he was his values were dissolving, but with Pluto here now, there's this big painful change, whether he likes it or not. Yeah, and then Mercury and Venus in the sixth, I think, probably lots of doctor visits, lots of trying to keep up with the details of life. Venus semi-square here, Jupiter. I don't think things are going to go well with his relationship. I think they're both probably going to be having a hard time. Because imagine if she has to go before the January 6th committee. And all that comes out, and then he's publicly humiliated because his wife is just crazy. And Jupiter's squaring the sun. This is challenging on the home level, and the relationship here again is another indication that relationship issues, but relationships with everyone, I think. That's the deal for the year. It's all about relationship. And does he feel safe? Is he feeling insecure? Is he feeling vulnerable? Is he supported? Well, with this square to Jupiter, I think not. People are wanting to move forward and go in a different direction. And yeah. Okay, so let's move on. I'm getting kind of bored there. So now with this one, this is the last thing to look at. So I have notes here because it can get quite complicated because we have three wheels. So we have his natal wheel in the center. We have his progressions, his secondary progressions in the second wheel. And then we have his solar arcs out here. Now, when it comes to secondary progressions, we don't progress the outer planets. It's only the personal planets. So that's why some things here I'm just skipping over and I've kind of highlighted around, and I'm connecting in with the solar arcs to the natal chart. But in this case right here, so all the solar arcs that are up here in the 8th house of death and rebirth, but also other people's resources and other people's finances, things like that. With the sun there, in exact, look at this, 13 degrees to his progressed sun. So basically, to explain progressions kind of in a nutshell, just know that the sun progresses 1 degree every year, and it kind of clocks through, right? So basically, being born with a 2 degrees Cancer, it would take him till he's about, 30, 31, 32 before he would have been progressed into Leo, and then another 30 years before he would have progressed into Virgo, which is where he is now, midway through almost, because the signs go from 0 to 29 degrees. So he's progressed now into a Virgo. This could show the kidney problems if that was a health issue, but I think it's kidney and lung. And like I said, the whole parasympathetic system and his brain. But anyway, so this is really important right here because it connects. So the sun is our vitality, our life force. So this is his evolving life force, which now when it comes to solar arcs, we progress the whole 9 yards and we read all of them. So Uranus is moving this way, getting closer and closer to his sun. That can be shocking, and it can't even be a heart attack. It can be something that liberates his soul and frees him up, but I'm not sure. Now, it's up here in this T-square to to Jupiter's here, and his north node's here, and we've got a square to all of this, right? So this is a tension point, a really strong point of tension here. We've got a tension field that's going on. And Jupiter's over here opposing all of this. So it's kind of like this slingshot of energy. And Jupiter in Pisces is, we're talking as a solar arc, it's big because it's all encompassing, especially when it comes to the like if I did a tarot reading just on his health, I'm sure that this would, reiterate what I would get, which has to do with, I think his bodily fluids are backing up. That's the problem, kind of blowing up, backing up. And, yeah. And with his south node in Scorpio natally, he could have colon problems too. It could have been that it was a wealth of, a whole bunch of different things. And which one do you treat first? And then maybe something new popped up, which is what kept him there for a whole week in the hospital. But so anyway, Neptune to Jupiter is contacting here. I have to skip Jupiter here because we don't progress that planet, only the personal planets. But so we go Jupiter to Neptune here indicates this blow up of maybe spiritual energy that needs to disperse and move on because he's not getting the lesson. And then it's connected up here to his Mars, which is about, how much physical energy a person has. But his Mars in Virgo is pretty fragmented there. Now, if this were a healthy person, somebody who's evolved spiritually, I would say that these are like the type of people who like to heal, like to, because Virgo rules small animals. This could be a person who's a veterinarian or somebody who likes to be out of nature, likes to take care of Mother Earth, likes to be orderly and very responsible, and who's someone who's modest and humble, especially in their actions, because Mars is about actions. But I don't think that's him. I think he's, again, this is in the 7th house, and with Neptune there, I think he's kind of deluded, and it's very dependent upon relationship for him to feel whole. And because especially we have this opposition here with Jupiter, there's an opportunity here for this Jupiter opposing Uranus. There could be a breakthrough into something better, but I think he has to go through some things first, and I don't know if he will. Now, the moon here, again, remember, is going to be public, and it's going to move pretty soon. It's at 12 degrees here. It just has to get to 13 degrees. And then there's going to be changes, because the moon is about changes too, changes in his networks and changes in his mental capacity, right? Changes in his community. And we've seen with the other transits, the other charts, like changes within his family. So let's see. Also, Saturn is up here. The taskmaster, karma. In Scorpio, it's all about, are you going to do the deeper work? Are you afraid of intimacy? Like, what's the real thing going on? And then on top of Mars, we're talking literally, like his self-assertion and his, like I said before, his life force, like what he really wants to go for, what he would fight for. His activities even, what motivates a person, what does he get enthusiastic about? Well, in Scorpio, it's like what? Revenge? Because we're talking Clarence Thomas here. It's revenge, or it's inside of other people's sexuality, even though he's an old geezer by now, but he's still, I don't know. Makes you wonder. Sometimes, though, I would say if he had natal Saturn in Scorpio, I'd say this would be a person who lives to be, quite old. But it's not. It's a solar arc Saturn. Where's his? Let's see. When it comes to his transits, well, that's his natal. Solar return. Here we go. Yeah, what's coming up with... Oh, yeah, that's right. Saturn in the first house of his body. No, that's not going to be good. That's not going to be fun. Limiting what he can do with his own body. And here we are again, limiting Saturn, limiting his life force that could be better. And it's not. I don't think it will be. So anyway, with this stellium here, we can see this 13 degrees, Sun conjunct Mercury, conjunct Venus. This is really important. And it connects here and it opposes... no, wait, that's just the opposition there. He's already had the opposition to Jupiter. So he's already had these opportunities, man. With this stellium here, here's what I should have done. Hold on. I should have drawn a line or a circle. Here's what to focus in on, like that. Actually connecting to his natal Neptune here. That's the thing that matters. Looks like a sound bubble or something there. Remember, we don't progress the personal planets here, so this would just be kind of crossed out. His progressed moon in Libra, newly into the ninth house. This is going to be, I think, changes and the public seeing him in his position on the bench and going, well, wait a minute. What's going on here? And notice how we have his progressed moon opposing his solar arc moon in Aries. Like, is he going to fight to stay on? Is he going to resign? Is he going to leave the planet? Like, what's going to happen there? I don't know, because I can't say what's right for any soul at any specific time. I can just read the possibilities. So with this stellium here in Virgo, remember, Virgo like cuts the wheat from the chaff or whatever. Virgo's like, like scythe energy that comes in and just can clear things out and eliminate what isn't working. Virgo can also be a lot of anxiety and worry and somebody who's very, fearful. And what's he probably most afraid of? Relationships that he can't control, right? Because remember, with natal Neptune in the 8th, this is like wanting to control relationship, because Libra's all about relationship. And it's ruled by Venus, and Venus is here in his 6th house of service and work. So not only wanting to control people in his work, public sphere, but where also is like the daily details of life. I bet you him and Jenny just really controlled each other a lot, or still do. Anyway, let's see, what else? I think that's about it. Progressed, or solar arc Pluto up here in the 9th house, that's not good. The 9th house is all about belief systems. And like I said before, it has to do with legal affairs and, it can be religion, but also spirituality. And that's where the belief systems come in. But it's also, it can be media and publishing, like things coming out. Because Pluto's, we're talking the dark, it brings things to light that have been buried in secret. So I think secrets are going to be coming out. And there's, the lesson to pay there. So, yeah. And especially because Neptune up here in the 11th house, There's a dissolution. There's this dissolving something with Neptune there. And in the 11th house, it's like all the, this new awareness, people seeing how deluded he's been. And then it's like, maybe does he get to make new friends? But it's also, that's another piece I didn't think about. It's also, yeah, this is not a good aspect here. And this has to do, this challenging situation here has to do with how he's been holding himself in a position of authority within a large group, within a large organization, a large political organization that's not supposed to be political. And we're talking, SCOTUS, they're not supposed to be political. They're supposed to be unbiased. But he's obviously, I think what's going to come out is that they're going to be proving how biased he has been with all of his rulings. And saving the best for last, I'm questioning as to whether he could be removed, and maybe even some of his rulings of the past can be removed, because if he was a deciding vote, that could change everything. I don't know if that would happen. There should be laws so that could happen, but I don't know, because we don't even have an ethics committee for these people, and that needs to change, and they're talking about that already. So hopefully that's going to be what happens. And maybe on a higher level, we could say this is one of the players that came in to show us how, what the weaknesses were within the system that needs to be changed, right? Just like Trump did. I mean, I'd rather have my lessons a lot easier. But yeah, we need psychological testing. We need vetting for their finances, and 10 years or more of their debt to asset ratios and tax returns, everything out in the open. Boy, do we need new laws. And I really do feel like that's what, I hope it doesn't take that long. I mean, with Saturn in Aquarius now, we're seeing the limitations of the ways that society is structured, the form of society, and especially legally within the political sphere. But when it comes to maybe when Pluto's in, but that's quite a while. That's like 2023 and 2024 when Pluto finally makes it to Aquarius. Maybe we'll have some new laws in place then, because Pluto's transformation and Aquarius is everything to do with society at large, and humanity at large, and the greater good of the whole. In the highest sense. In the lower sense, it's all about, detaching from the heart and cutting off and not caring about humanity, being inhumane, right? So, anyway, I think I should stop talking. I think this is long enough, and I'm going to get it uploaded for you, and welcome your comments. Okay, take care, you guys. Bye.